The first time I saw Adrian Blackwood after he abandoned me, he was standing beneath a chandelier worth more than the house my mother died in. He looked older. Not weak. Not broken. Just tired in the way powerful men become tired when the world stops clapping for them. 3 years ago he left me at the altar. Not quietly. Not privately. Not with a letter folded beside a dying rose. He left me in front of 100 guests, beneath white flowers I had chosen with trembling hands, while my cousin Serena walked in wearing the diamond necklace his mother once placed around my neck and called family. That day I did not scream. I did not chase him. I stood there in my wedding dress while people whispered like rain against glass, while my father lowered his head in shame, while Serena smiled as if she had finally stolen the sun from my sky. Adrian never looked back. Not once. And maybe that was the part that killed me. Not the betrayal. Not the humiliation. But the way he erased me so completely, as if loving me had been a mistake he was eager to correct. For 3 years I rebuilt myself from silence. I changed my name in boardrooms before I could stop hearing it in his voice. And now, he stood before me again, waiting to meet the new owner of his failing company. He lifted his eyes. Then his face went pale. Because the woman he left at the altar was no longer crying. She was signing his future away. I used to believe love was proven by how much pain you were willing to endure for someone. That was my first mistake. Before Adrian Blackwood became the man who left me beneath a wedding arch, he was the man who found me crying outside my father's bakery on a rainy Thursday evening. I was 22, broke in the gentle way poor people try to hide, with flour on my sleeves and dreams folded quietly inside my chest. He stepped out of a black car that looked like midnight itself. I remember his shoes first. Polished. Expensive. Untouched by mud. Then his voice. Are you all right? No one had asked me that in months. My father's business was drowning in debt. My mother's medical bills had eaten through everything we owned before she died. I had dropped out of design school to help with deliveries, bookkeeping, and pretending we were not falling apart. Adrian bought every pastry left in the display case that night. Not because he wanted them. Because he saw the eviction notice tucked beneath the counter. I hated him a little for noticing. But I loved him for not making me feel small. He returned the next week, then the next, always dressed like a man who belonged to buildings with marble floors and private elevators. He spoke softly, watched carefully, and listened as if my words mattered. That was how he entered my life. Not like thunder, like warmth. He told me he envied people like me. People who still knew what it meant to fight for something with their whole heart. I laughed because rich men always romanticize struggle from the safety of leather seats. But Adrian did not laugh. He looked at me like I had said something sacred. By winter, he knew how I took my coffee. By spring, he knew every scar I carried without asking to touch them. And by summer, I had mistaken his attention for devotion. I did not know then that some men could love you deeply and still choose the easier woman when the world demanded it. That lesson came dressed in white. And it left me standing in the rain. Adrian loved like a man trying to make up for all the cold rooms he had grown up in. He would appear at the bakery after board meetings, loosen his tie, and sit at the corner table while I sketched dress designs on napkins. He said my hands were made for more than kneading dough. I told him his hands were made for signing papers that ruined ordinary people. He smiled at that. A rare, quiet smile. The kind that made me feel chosen. When my father's bakery was close to shutting down, Adrian offered to invest. I refused at first because pride was the last inheritance I had left. But he didn't make it feel like charity. He called it partnership. He said I had talent. He said I deserved breathing room. I wanted to believe him. So I did. He helped renovate the bakery. He paid old suppliers. He hired an accountant. Slowly, the place that had smelled like desperation began to smell like sugar again. And in the middle of that miracle, I fell. Not quickly, not foolishly, but completely. He took me to quiet restaurants where no one knew my name. He listened to stories about my mother as if she was still alive inside every sentence. He kept the first dress design I ever showed him folded inside his office drawer. You'll build your own fashion house one day, Elara, he told me once. I asked, and where will you be? He touched my cheek and said, Right beside you. That promise became a home I moved into without checking whether the walls were real. But love between unequal people is never just love. It is a scale. One person gives flowers. The other gives faith. One person gives protection. The other gives their whole life. I did not notice how much of myself I was handing over. My time. My future. My trust. My hunger to be seen. Adrian became my shelter. But shelters can become cages when only one person holds the key. Still, when he proposed beneath the bakery lights, with my father crying behind the counter, I said yes before he finished asking. Because I thought love had finally chosen me back. I did not know love could wear a ring and still arrive with a knife. Serena Vale was born with the kind of beauty people forgave too easily. She was my cousin, but we were never truly family in the way that mattered. She came from my mother's wealthy side. The side that visited us only when they wanted to feel generous. Growing up, Serena treated my life like a small, sad story she was grateful not to live. When she heard I was engaged to Adrian Blackwood, her smile froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. Adrian was not just handsome. He was legacy. Power. Old money wrapped in a tailored suit. His family owned hotels, real estate, and enough silence to bury scandals before breakfast. To Serena, marrying him was not love. It was elevation. At first, she acted happy for me. She helped choose flowers, tasted cakes, and called me the luckiest girl alive in a voice soft enough to fool everyone but my heart. Then small things began to change. She visited Adrian's office without telling me. She wore perfume I knew he liked. She started appearing at family dinners dressed as if every room were a competition. Whenever I mentioned discomfort, Adrian kissed my forehead and told me I was overthinking. That was the first time love made me doubt my own eyes. Then came the stolen design. A week before the wedding, Serena presented a bridal collection at a charity event sponsored by the Blackwood family. The sketches were mine. Not inspired by mine. Not similar. Mine. The ivory gown with pearl-dropped sleeves. The blue reception dress named after my mother. The mourning veil design I created the night grief felt too heavy to breathe. She stood beneath camera flashes and accepted applause for pieces I had drawn with aching fingers in the back room of my father's bakery. When I confronted her, she smiled. "You should be grateful," she said. "Your designs finally look expensive on someone like me." I slapped her. Not hard enough to hurt. Hard enough to tell the truth. Adrian saw only the slap. Not the theft. Not the years of quiet cruelty. Not the way Serena had learned to bleed me politely. He pulled me aside, anger tightening his jaw. "You embarrassed me tonight," he said. And for the first time, I wondered if he loved me because I was strong, or because I was easy to silence. My wedding morning smelled like lilies and betrayal. I woke before sunrise, not because I was excited, but because my chest felt too full to carry. The sky outside my window was gray. The kind of gray that makes every beautiful thing look temporary. My dress hung near the mirror. White satin. Long sleeves. Pearl buttons down the back. I had designed it myself and sewn part of the hem by hand, hiding a blue thread inside it because my mother once told me every bride should carry something old, something new, something borrowed, and something brave. I thought I was brave. I was only unaware. At the church, everyone smiled too brightly. Adrian's mother did not look me in the eye. My father squeezed my hand until his fingers trembled. Serena was missing from the bridal room, but no one seemed worried. That should have warned me. The music started. The doors opened. And I walked. Every step felt like prayer. Adrian stood at the altar in black, beautiful and distant. His eyes met mine, then moved away too quickly. I told myself he was nervous. I told myself powerful men did not know how to look vulnerable in public. Then the priest asked if anyone objected. No one spoke. Instead, the side doors opened. Serena entered. She wore a red dress. Not bridal white. Something worse. Triumphant red. Around her neck was the Blackwood family diamond necklace, the one Adrian's mother had placed on me during our engagement dinner as a symbol of acceptance. My breath left me. Serena walked to Adrian and placed a hand on his arm. He did not move away. The guests began whispering. My father stood. I whispered Adrian's name, but he looked at me like a stranger looking at a debt he no longer wanted to pay. "I'm sorry, Elara," he said. 2 words. So small. So capable of murder. Then he turned to the crowd and announced that the wedding would not continue. He said there had been a mistake. A mistake. That was what he called me. Serena lowered her eyes, pretending sadness, but I saw the curve of her smile. And when Adrian walked out with her, leaving me beneath an arch of dying flowers, I realized heartbreak did not always make a sound. Sometimes it stood perfectly still, while everyone watched it bleed. After the wedding, no one knew what to say to me. That was almost worse than the betrayal. Pity is a quiet violence. It enters rooms before you do. It softens people's voices and turns your name into something fragile. For weeks, I did not leave my bedroom. The wedding dress stayed folded at the bottom of my closet like a body no one had buried. My father tried to talk to me through the door. Friends sent messages. Reporters called. Serena's engagement to Adrian appeared online 3 days after my humiliation, wrapped in headlines about true love found after difficult family misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. That was the second death. The first was being left. The second was watching them rewrite the story. Serena told the world I had been unstable, jealous, violent. She said Adrian had tried to end things gently, but I refused to accept it. His family released a statement about private emotional complications. And Adrian said nothing. His silence became their permission. People who had never met me discussed my heartbreak like entertainment. They called me desperate. They called Serena elegant. They called Adrian brave for choosing happiness. I stopped correcting them. Not because I agreed. Because grief had taken my voice. Then my father's bakery closed. Blackwood investors pulled their support. Suppliers demanded immediate payment. Our accounts froze under legal pressure I did not understand until one evening. I found my father sitting in the empty shop, staring at the ovens like they were graves. "They took everything," he whispered. That night, something inside me changed. Not healed. Changed. I packed my sketchbooks, my mother's sewing kit, and the wedding dress I could not look at. Then I left town before dawn with $200 and a heart too broken to fear poverty. I slept in a bus station my first night. I cried into my sleeve because I could not afford tissues. But by morning, I made a vow. I would never again beg to be chosen. I would become so undeniable that the people who erased me would have to learn my name again. Not as a bride. Not as a victim. As the woman they failed to destroy. 3 years can be a grave or a garden. I chose the garden. Not because I was strong at first. I was not. I was wounded, hungry, and terrified in a city that did not care whether I survived. I worked anywhere that would take me. Hotel laundry rooms. Late-night tailoring shops. Backstage alterations for fashion students who looked through me as if I were furniture. At night, I designed. On receipt paper. On cardboard. On the backs of rejected invoices. My hands shook often. But they kept moving. I entered a local design competition under my mother's maiden name, Elara Monroe, because Vale had become a name soaked in humiliation. My collection was called After the Rain. Every piece carried something from the life I had lost. Torn lace, pearl tears, dark silk, blue thread hidden in the seams. The judges called it intimate. I called it survival. I won second place. Then a boutique owner asked to stock 3 pieces. Then a fashion editor wrote about me. Then a private investor requested a meeting. Her name was Vivian Hart, a woman with silver hair, sharp eyes, and no patience for self-pity. She looked through my portfolio for 15 minutes without speaking. Then she said, "You design like someone who has been betrayed and refused to die." I almost cried. She funded my first small studio. But she also trained me like war. She taught me contracts, ownership, negotiation, silence, and the priceless art of not explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. She told me talent opened doors, but discipline kept enemies from locking them behind you. Under her mentorship, Monroe Atelier grew quietly, then quickly. Actresses wore my gowns. Magazines called my work haunting. Wealthy women wanted dresses that made them feel powerful instead of merely beautiful. I became someone people invited into rooms Adrian once kept me outside of. But success did not feel like revenge at first. It felt like breathing without apologizing. Then one morning, Vivian placed a file on my desk. Blackwood Global Holdings was collapsing after a series of failed investments. Their luxury hotel division needed acquisition support. They want us to buy in, she said. I opened the file. Adrian's name stared back at me. And for the first time in 3 years, my hands did not shake. The Blackwood boardroom looked exactly like I imagined a place built on arrogance would look. Glass walls, marble floors, long table. Men in expensive suits pretending panic was strategy. I arrived in a cream coat, black heels, and the kind of silence that makes powerful people sit straighter. Vivian walked beside me, but this meeting belonged to me. Monroe Atelier had grown into more than fashion. Through strategic partnerships, we had entered luxury branding, hotel interiors, and private hospitality design. Blackwood needed rescue. We were the rescue. No one recognized me at first. That was the beauty of becoming. They saw the polished hair, the tailored suit, the calm posture, the woman whose name now carried weight. They saw money, influence, control. They did not see the bride they had watched fall apart. Then Adrian entered. He froze. Only for a second. But it was enough. His face lost color, and in that small flicker of shock, I saw the ghost of the man who once bought pastries in the rain. The man I had loved. The man who had destroyed me because loving me had become inconvenient. Elara, he said. Not Miss Monroe. Not welcome. Elara. The board members turned. I smiled. A soft, professional smile. Mr. Blackwood, I said. Shall we begin? His throat moved as if he had swallowed glass. During the presentation, I spoke clearly. I discussed debt, restructuring, brand damage, market recovery, and leadership failure. Every word landed with quiet precision. I never raised my voice. I never mentioned the altar. I did not need to. The room already felt like a church. And this time, he was the one standing before judgment. Adrian tried to meet my eyes, but I gave him only business. That was the revenge no scandal could match. Not hatred. Not tears. Distance. After the meeting, he followed me into the hallway. Please, he said. Can we talk? I looked at him then. Really looked. 3 years ago, I would have given anything to hear him say please. Now it sounded like an unpaid debt. There's nothing personal between us anymore, I said. And the lie tasted almost like freedom. Adrian came to my office the next evening with rain on his coat. Of course it was raining. Some stories are cruel enough to repeat their own symbols. My assistant tried to turn him away, but I allowed him in because closure, I had learned, sometimes needed witnesses, even if the witness was only the woman you became. He stood near the door, not daring to sit. I didn't leave because I loved Serena, he said. I laughed once. Softly. It hurt more than I expected. Do you think that makes it better? His eyes lowered. No. Then he told me everything. His father had threatened to destroy my family if Adrian married me. Serena had offered a solution. She had convinced the Blackwoods that marrying her would secure access to her side of the family's wealth and political connections. She had stolen my designs to prove I was unstable when I confronted her. Adrian claimed he planned to protect me by ending things publicly before his family ruined me privately. But they ruined me anyway. That was the part his explanation could not survive. You let them call me crazy, I whispered. His face tightened. I thought silence would protect you. No, I said. Silence protected you. The room became very still. Outside, rain traced silver lines down the window like handwriting from heaven. Adrian stepped closer, voice breaking. I regretted it every day. I wanted to believe regret had weight. But regret did not reopen the bakery. Regret did not give my father back the years shame took from him. Regret did not sit with me in bus stations or stitch gowns through fever or hold me when I forgot how to sleep. You loved me only until love required courage, I said. He closed his eyes. That hurt him. I was glad. And then I hated myself for being glad. Before he left, he placed something on my desk. A folded piece of paper. My first dress sketch. The one he had kept in his office drawer years ago. "I never stopped believing in you," he said. I looked at the sketch. Then at him. "You believed in me quietly," I replied. "I had to believe in myself loudly." That was the difference between us. And it was finally enough. Serena returned to my life wearing white again. This time, not as a bride. As a woman afraid of losing everything. She arrived at the Blackwood Gala wrapped in diamonds, her smile sharp, her arm linked through Adrian's as if the past had not learned to breathe again. But the room had changed. The people who once whispered about me now whispered around her. Power is strange that way. It does not apologize. It simply turns. Monroe Atelier had acquired controlling interest in Blackwood's hotel division by then. My designs would restore their flagship properties, and my name was printed on every program card in gold. Serena saw it. Her smile cracked. During the gala, she cornered me near a wall of white orchids. "You always wanted to be me," she said. There it was. The old cruelty. Still dressed beautifully. I looked at her and realized something almost merciful. She had not grown. All those years, she had been living inside the same small hunger. The need to steal what another woman loved because she had never learned how to become worthy of anything on her own. "No," I said. "I wanted to be loved. You wanted to be chosen." Her eyes burned. Then came the final collapse. A journalist released an exposé that night. Documents proving Serena had stolen my designs. Emails showing how she helped frame me as unstable. Financial records tying her family to the pressure campaign that destroyed my father's bakery. I had not leaked them. Vivian had. Quietly. Legally. Perfectly. The room changed within minutes. Phones lit up. Faces turned. The woman who once entered my wedding in red now stood beneath 1,000 cold stares. Adrian stepped away from her. Not dramatically. Just enough. And somehow, that was worse. Serena looked at me as if I had pushed her. But I had done nothing. I had only survived long enough for the truth to find good lighting. When she whispered, "You ruined me," I shook my head. "No, Serena," I said. "I simply stopped hiding what you did." For the first time, she had no stolen beauty left to wear. Only consequences. Adrian resigned before the acquisition was finalized. I found his letter on my desk 2 days later, sealed in a black envelope. Not a love letter. Not an apology begging for another chance. Just a confession written with the humility he should have had 3 years too late. He admitted his cowardice. His silence. His failure. He wrote that losing the company felt small compared to realizing he had once held my heart and treated it like a negotiable asset. I read it once. Then I placed it inside a drawer. Not because I forgave him completely, because I no longer wanted my life arranged around his regret. My father reopened the bakery that spring. Not the same one. A better one. Monroe Bakery and Cafe sat beneath my first design studio, with blue flowers painted on the windows in memory of my mother. On opening day, my father cried into his apron while customers lined the street. I watched him smile again and understood that justice was not always loud. Sometimes it smelled like fresh bread. Sometimes it looked like a father standing in sunlight after years of shame. Adrian came once. He stood across the street in a dark coat, hands in his pockets. He did not enter. He did not call my name. He simply looked at the bakery, then at me through the glass. I held his gaze. For a moment, I remembered everything. The rain. The pastries. The proposal. The altar. The silence. Then I turned away. Not in cruelty. In peace. Because some endings do not need revenge. They need a woman choosing not to walk back into the fire just because the flames finally learned her name. Years later, people would call my story inspiring. They would say I rose from humiliation and became powerful. They would talk about the man who left me and the cousin who stole from me. But that was never the whole truth. The truth was simpler. He left me at the altar for my rich cousin. 3 years later, I returned as his boss. But the real victory was this. I no longer needed him to regret losing me, to know I had become unforgettable.